Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and I guess welcome back to a Black Mirror review.
hmm
4 years delayed, but I am the Streamberry CEO, and I'm joined by
you didn't say your name.
Trust now.
I am the deep fake, Dylan Munns.
That's me, yes, ladies and gentlemen. Head down the description for everything you need to know down below. Get us to 50 patrons by July 31st. Unlock 6 episodes. They're all down below. A lot of different. We produced 3 episodes tonight, so you'll get a bunch of content heading into the
hmm
weekend. And then the weekend, you'll be getting the Indiana Jones 3 and 4 retrospective. So lots of good little run of cast for the next 5 days. So look out for all that. And Nintendo Direct we just did, Secret Invasion review, tons of stuff. But going a little quicker because it's getting late and we got some Black Mirror to talk about. So if you want, you can go back in the ether. Me and Dylan have done 2 seasons, and then there was one season that I had done by myself. Actually, no, I never actually reviewed the San Junipero season. I think I just talked about it on what
hmm
was, Trash told you back then, Thought Bubbles. But
Right.
so yeah, there's like some Black Mirror content. And maybe one day we'll have to go back when if the strike happens.
Do
Maybe
a
one day we'll go
ranking.
back. Yeah, and talk about some of those because there's some great ones in those older episodes or older seasons and stuff like that. So, but yeah, it's been I think it was 4 years or 3 years,
hmm
something like that. It's been quite a while since Black Mirror. We got this is season 6. There's 5 episodes to this. So Dylan Must, I know if I recall, I feel like with the last season, there's some things we liked. I especially really liked the video game episode with Yaya and Anthony Mackie. I thought that was really good. But other than that, I feel like we're kind of in the sense of maybe not disappointed. I don't know if that's the strong enough word, but maybe we're let down by season 5. How are you with season 6?
Yeah, I
Oh,
think.
and hang on. For people, we'll talk overall, and then we'll get into a spoiler. We'll
hmm
warn you, and then we're gonna talk about each episode by itself. So
Yes.
just to give you a breakdown how we're doing this. Sorry.
Yeah, I would say that I feel like there's maybe a sweet spot there in seasons 2 to 3, and I'd really have to go back and look at the episodes because I've not rewatched any Black Mirror in a while either myself, actually.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like there's a sweet spot there where I was like, man, I really love this. This is a really great show, really great concepts here, very consistent quality. And then I feel like it's been downhill. I don't mean that super negatively. I think it's just
Mm-hmm.
been a slight decline, not dropping off a cliff, not like terrible or anything like that, but it's been hard to reach. It's been a bit since the peak, I suppose.
Yeah.
Of course, each episode's its own thing. So there's certain episodes that stand out as being better than others. But I would say that on that same trajectory, this has got to be my least favorite season.
Mm.
The way I would describe it is that really only one episode here actually feels like a Black Mirror episode. The other ones don't really feel like the same show to me. I think in terms of just the writing quality, some of the stuff here feels a bit first draft energy to it, just in terms of
Ooh.
certain dialogue and stuff, where it's like, okay, what is the purpose of this scene that we're writing here? Okay, we did, just get the basics on the page, but then they never like went back to iterate it, make it sound more interesting, make it more intriguing. But I still had a fun time with all these episodes. Like it's still
Mm-hmm.
good fun TV. However, I don't really see myself rewatching maybe any of these ever. Whereas there's certain Black Mirror episodes that, yes, it's been a while since I've rewatched, but there's some that are classics that I've gone back and watched multiple times. I don't think any of these would join the ranks of any of those. So I guess I would be on paper disappointed, but I don't know. It's not the worst either. I still had a good enough time watching these 5. So I guess it just feels
Mm-hmm.
like in a couple of weeks I'll probably forget that this happened, and then by the end of the year I'll be like, oh yeah, I guess the new episode season of Black Mirror came out. I just kind of forgot about it.
Yeah, it's funny. We did Direct and Secret Invasion. I'm pretty much in line with you here. And lots of similar thought.
One
Think
mind.
what? Yeah, mind thinks here. Is that think mind? Mind think? Think tank. Think tank. That's what I'm
Think
going for.
tank,
Yeah.
brainstorm, yeah, something like that.
Yeah, and like even when you talk about the episode, I feel like I know which episode you're talking about, and I feel like that's been the thing that everyone's talking about that episode, and I feel with Black Mirror in the past, it wasn't that way. I feel like a bunch would come out and be like, "Oh, I really like this one." No, but I like this one. Where I feel like this and last season, it's like, yeah, everyone kind of agrees this is the good one, and I agree with you again. And I think April said this in our Discord where there there's not much tech, and I get it because the creator said like, oh, it's not about tech, so I understand that. But to me, this season especially feels more like it's just a new horror anthology show, which is fun, but it feels definitely more in that kind of trick or treat, Tales from the Crypt, almost Goosebumpsy, where it's like more on the scariest side. But the problem is, I don't think it's too scary. I think it's kind of like to give an example, Beetlejuice came out, right? And then it was like, I don't know, 5 or 6 years later, they were trying to make a Beetlejuice sequel, and they went to Kevin Smith and asked him to write the script, and he said, "Has everything been said already about Beetlejuice that needs to be said?" And then Beetlejuice 2 never happened. And I feel like that might be the case with
Until
Black
now, isn't
Mirror.
that like isn't Beetlejuice
It
coming
is
back now?
no, yeah, it's
Yeah.
in production now, but that's because things keep bombing. So like, oh,
Yeah.
let's try this one out. But I think it's Black Mirror. And I said this, I mean, like, maybe it's just run its course, and I'm trying to not say that in such a negative way, but I think it's kind of like what you were alluding to. Of I don't know if we can get to that peak, and that's because I feel like I agree with you. For me, 2 to 4 was like the prime years, and even then, episode season 1, like I'll never forget like the pig
Hmm.
government episode. Like there's some really like haunting things there. So for me, it's one of these things that I don't know if you can get to those ever again. Maybe in this format, maybe if especially in this season they experiment where I feel like 2 episodes, they're basically just movies. They're like an hour 15. Like even
Hmm.
one's called the Red Mirror film, right? Like you could just call these movies. So maybe that's the next step for this creator. And I always forget his name. I think it's Sam something, but I'll look it up. But maybe that's the next step, to do a feature length and to dive into it that way, because maybe the way this is going is there's just, like you said, it's good, and I don't feel like I wasted my time. I think they're well made, they're well acted for the most part, they're well written. I think my problem with this season was there's a couple episodes that just felt unfortunately predictable, and with Black Mirror that usually never was the case, right? And I feel like the unpredictableness in this season sometimes a little bit of shock value, which I'm all for shock value. Follow up. So am I still there? Yeah, there you go. No, it's a guy from Astronaut. He took over, but
Black Mirror
yeah,
moment over here.
yeah, exactly. So I think they'd be smart to maybe they'll probably do another season, and I think they'd be smart to say this is the final season. Now, of course, like if ratings do good and it's watched and stuff, they'll still keep going. But I just don't know if we can return to that form, because I think now we've had 2 seasons back to back where there's one in here I really like, and there's the video game from last year. But again, like you said, I'll probably forget most of it in a couple weeks. And with Black Mirror, that
Hmm.
was never the case. Black Mirror would have episodes, whether there are positive endings or negative endings, you'd be thinking about them for a while.
At
And
least one
talking to people.
episode per season, right?
Yeah.
Something sticks with you. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know. If there's a season 7, I'll watch it and likely enjoy it, but it's definitely not the premiere
Hmm.
TV. And I think there's one episode in particular too where I think the other thing that takes me out of it a little bit is I worried about this before, and I think they need to go back to just mostly sticking like unknown name actors and actresses. I think that helps
Sure.
these episodes a lot, and I think there's obviously was the first one where I feel like it gets a little too gimmicky. It's fun, but like I said, I always wonder how would I judge these episodes if it wasn't Black Mirror. If there was just a new show, the Red Door. I'll take from it the Red Mirror, like the Red Door, and it's a horror anthology show. Maybe in reverse, I go, oh, this is great, but just because there's been so much great in the past, it's like,
Yeah.
well,
Expectations for sure.
yeah, and that's the tough thing. So on their own, they're good. I would recommend this if you're a fan. If you're just looking for certain Black Mirror episodes, I'd give you a list, but I don't know if any of these would be
Yeah.
on there. Maybe one. I'd have to think about it. I'd have to maybe actually look at all episodes and do a top 10, but I'm not even confident in saying that. So,
If your Netflix subscription has lapsed because of the password thing, this is not a reason in my mind to resubscribe. Thankfully, it popped up on Plex for me, so I was able to watch it there. But yeah, I don't have Netflix anymore, and so I didn't know if I was gonna be able to watch this. And I think if I had spent money to resubscribe and then I got this, I would have been a bit disappointed. So
yeah, no, I agree. So, yeah, so we're going to get into spoilers, but we'll go by episode. So, yeah, if you've not seen it, if you're waiting, you can come back. If not, it'll be sitting here. Or if you don't care, if you want to just get a little more in depth, we're going to talk about that right now. So, we'll be right back. And we're back. So, episode 1, Joan is awful. So, very, very. I don't. This is the episode that I love the setup, and when we had the first 20 minutes, I was like, "Oh, this is I'm very excited where we're gonna go." And then this is what I call as an enjoyable episode, but that's where to me it started to feel gimmicky. We had lots of stuff with celebrities. We had lots of things that were very, I don't know, almost feel like they probably weren't, but written more for the actors and actresses involved opposed to the story. I don't know. I just felt like the first 20 minutes, maybe the setup was so good. I was so interested in this person's life being recorded and turned into a show. And then what it actually was is, I get it, it's a commentary on some things happening right now. We talk about Secret Invasion, but I don't think the finale matched my level of interestness of the opening of it.
Yeah, this one, it wasn't quite on the tier of feeling like, a fan was loving Black Mirror and wanted to make their own episode. But to me, in
Hmm.
a way, it felt like a bit of a catch-all of like, okay, we've been away for a few years. What are some like hot topics and some things we've never covered before on Black Mirror, some
Yeah.
classic tech things? And so I feel like there's a bit of like, okay, terms and conditions, like having something egregious in there that we like,
Hmm.
everyone signed that, and then there's like
I
a
always
lot of
ask
stuff.
Emily that. I'm like, what if they asked for unborn child and we said yes? Like, what would happen? So I
Which
was
I think has
pleasantly
happened
surprised
many
with that.
times in the real world, and they're just like, "Oh yeah, no one actually reads that, so it's not accountable in court or something like
Yeah.
that." Or like, "Oh, our phones listening to everything we're doing to the point of
Mhm.
being able to replicate our lives." A lot of algorithm stuff, like deep fake stuff. It just felt like a bit of a catch-all, and so I don't think any of it really hit super well. And I guess part of that too is I don't know if like some part of it just like wasn't believable, but it didn't like hit me in that same way that other Black Mirror concepts have. And I
Yeah.
think it's some of them are because they feel so believable, but I don't know, something about like just the terms and conditions being something that's screwing over this whole person's life felt like a bit like a stretch too far for me of like,
Hmm.
okay, I don't feel like scared by this in the same way that in a pending Black Mirror thing. It just feels like a bit too easy of an attempt from the writing, I guess.
It felt like if Jim Carrey was still doing comedy movies, this would have been some
Yeah.
comedy movie he got linked into of like, oh, well, they own your identity and everything from like and I get it, this idea of like the church scene. She's trying to get Selma Hayek to not want to have her rights anymore. And yeah, that's what it is. People are listening, haven't seen the episode that, there's a character named Joan. We meet her, we see her everyday life, and we see some things that she does aren't the greatest, but one, they're either embellished, or two, it's when these things are like, well, everybody gets put in these situations, like if you have to fire someone, stuff like that, where it's like, yeah, maybe you shouldn't handle the best, but it's also not as bad as a show where Selma Hayek is
Mm-hmm.
just making it seem like she rains down with her on an iron fist. And she's this is where the bad part comes in. She's like rekindling with X while she's engaged to another guy and all this stuff. And eventually, when she gets home, sits down with her current love. She puts on the TV, and there's a show called Joan is Awful. Selma Hayek has the hair and stuff like that, the same as the way this character, and they watch it's her whole day life, and it starts to spread and everything like that. And that's kind of the basis for the
Mm-hmm.
episode. And obviously, just showing kind of the same thing of like, hey, if anybody would have a camera on you all the time, they'd find something to say you were a bad person, right? And the same thing too with and I guess that happened a lot to me this season, and I don't know if that's just because we're reviewing more or just creative and stuff like that, but the idea of her not being, because it was this actress from Schitt's Creek, which I haven't seen, midway I'm like, oh, she's not the real Joan either, and
Yeah.
I feel like they kind of telegraphed that too much, so.
As soon as she's watching the show and like Selma Hayek's in there, at that point, I immediately the ruse was up in a bit of a way.
Hmm.
And I feel like one thing with Black Mirror is often like the big techie concept of an episode is revealed like almost immediately, right? In the first like
Hmm.
5-10 minutes. It's not like they're trying to hide that from you. There's always some twist later on, but like they're at least getting you into it a bit more. And so I feel like this one is trying something a bit different where it wanted to have the twists and some of those things be later on. But then, yeah, I felt like I could kind of see it from a mile away, which is not typical for me. Usually, I'm the last one on the podcast to like, oh yeah, I did not pick up on that at all. So I think it just came off a bit too strong, perhaps. I was really happy to see Annie Murphy, that actress
Hmm.
who I've grown to love from Schitt's Creek. I've never seen her in anything else, and I thought she was really fun and great in here. Naturally, I think she's very funny, so she worked for what this character was, and I was pretty happy with her character. But yeah, I was not too shocked when that reveal happened towards the end of the episode.
Yeah, I haven't seen Schitt's Creek, but I liked her quite a bit. So it's my first exposure to her. So I thought, okay, I'm down to seeing other things. I actually thought as I was watching this, and if we get replaced, I thought James Gunn should look at her as the next Harley Quinn because she was doing a lot of just like certain
Mm.
facial and movement stuff. Like that. I'm like, okay,
About the rogue
that's
hair
there.
too. I'm like, come on, like get her an X-Men. Like,
Yeah, yeah, that's a possibility too. And then I like Salma Hayek, but she was not here, I think, to give a great performance. They've written her as like a over the top version of Salma Hayek, so I feel like they have her saying a lot of like very outlandish things, like fuck him, like what, like just being very over the top,
Yes.
very much like kind of Nicolas Cage in that his movie. But the difference with Nicolas Cage is eventually there's times where it's tying to his daughter, his ex-wife, where he feels regret. Like there's kind of an arc with that character of realizing that,
Mhm.
hey, money's not worth more than the family. Where Selma Hayek doesn't get that here, right? It's
Yeah.
just she's there to be, an extension of herself, which is fine. But that's where it's like, I wonder what it would have been like if you had two actresses that were, and I like Annie's performance, so that's good. But I wonder what this episode would be like if you had two actors that were not like nobodies, but in the world they were somebody, right? If that would have been a little bit better. But I think this was an episode, maybe as the first one too. There's like, I guess it is one of the better ones for me if I'm talking about this season, but it was a very cute episode. It's like the Streamberry Netflix thing. There was like did you see like the making of San Junipero? Actually, no, sorry, that's a different one. I'll get to
That's
that later.
in
But
Lock Henry, yeah.
yeah, but like they had like the Bandersnatch character in there. They had lots of little,
Yes.
so
Yeah,
uh,
I was going to
I
mention
like
that
that.
too. That yeah, there's two episodes in this season that mention Streamberry, which I don't think they've especially dropped that name in previous episodes. Like I think that was new to the season.
I think so. Yeah, they
What
had the
and
Dum pretty much.
yeah, which yeah, I thought it was interesting that they. Well, I don't think Netflix would have an issue with the writers doing or the writer doing that, like making kind of mocking Netflix in a way. But I thought it was interesting that two of the episodes were very much like self-referential on like the state of Netflix and the kind of TV shows that they're pushing, particularly in. I mean, we can talk about that more in Lock Henry with how many just murder shows and stuff like that. But in terms of like this one being more about not necessarily a specific show, but just the algorithm, picking something that is going to make you have a strong emotional reaction. I think that was an element to it that almost like started to break to me near the end was when we get the reveal of like this big algorithm machine being this thing that's doing it. It's like a supercomputer. I guess I didn't fully understand like why the simulation, why it needs to have the inception effect to it. Like why does it matter at all that the simulation also has a simulation? Like what is that? How in any way does that add to it? I guess is my curiosity, and where I feel like they just kind of did it more because it was fun and not because it actually made sense.
Yeah, I think probably if you were to ask them, I just headcanon is that's the way the simulation believes it's a real world thing, is a way of like, okay, well, if we make a simulation with a simulation, at no point does it break, but like at the same point it still broke, right? Like Annie Murphy figured out that, okay, I'm in a simulation, stuff like that. So that's way of headcanon and stuff like that. Oh, right, that was another thing where like I like him, but like even stuff like when Michael Cera popped up, I was like, like I don't know, like it's just he's becoming the new, like he's in this, he's in Barbie. There was another thing, him and Pete Davidson are like the two guys. Like, well, we just need a random character here to be a little silly for a bit. Who could get? It's like Pete Davidson or Michael Cera. Great. So luckily they were going with the simulation, which I already knew. But even then, I just was. I don't know. Again, this struck me more as like, we're with Netflix. We got this bigger budget. We're being very cheeky right now. And now we got a bunch of famous actors around. It's like, it's all right. But yeah, I don't think it was needed. And the whole reveal, like a big supercomputer just to easily fix it's like, all right, I can accept it. It's nothing going to be right home about. But
yeah, I mean, I think, Annie Murphy, Selma Hayek, and Michael Cera, not that he's in it a whole lot, like, they're all very funny and charismatic, so it works, right? But it doesn't really have that depth. It doesn't get you any deeper than what your initial concept is, and
yeah, and it takes me out of it too because it's funny. Like, there's a few franchises that are like that. Like I've always said with Star Wars, I don't like really famous actors in Star Wars because it brings me out. And I feel like after this season, I've realized that Black Mirror might be that too because it's these, supposed to be these big issues, these very psychological issues. But then if I see Michael Cera, I'm like, I'm taken out of it. And this one was more comedic, so it's fine. But still, I think it for the most part takes me out, especially when there's multiple actors too. I think so.
Yeah, this one they definitely went the full Monty, but like I feel like it wasn't the first season of Black Mirror that had Daniel Kaluuya like before he was kind of a big deal.
That's
so I
what
feel like in many
yeah.
ways there's been a lot of actors that have been there before their big break, or maybe they still have remained in like a bit on the side, but like San Junipero, those two have gone on to do some cool stuff. They aren't like A tier celebrity or anything like that, but they were kind of ahead of the curve a bit. Yeah, Letitia Wright's another good example.
Yeah, Letitia Wright, and I think there's Toby Kebbell's another one. And even when there's someone like they got their Christmas special when they got John Hamm, for me that was one where it's like he's not like a massive celebrity where it didn't take me out of it. Another one was they had Haley Atwell and Domhnall Gleeson before they were like
Right.
Peggy Carter or like it was maybe around that era, right? And I think that's what I prefer. I like the up and comers because my mind works differently. If I see Kahlua in the past, it's like, well, I saw him as Kahlua first, right? And then I
Yeah,
saw
and you expect
Get Out
more
and all
now
that
as well. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Right. That's all about when we get to episode 4, which was really disappointing me because I have a certain actress and I'm like, oh, this person's great. And they were in a role where it's like anybody could have been in this role, you know? So that's where it's like, okay, if you're going to go get the talent, the budget, where this, I think it's right. They're using them in comedic roles. But for other stuff, it's like, if you're going to go there, you know, you got to, and I think there's one episode that delivers. So it's not a complete, just the entire series doesn't use them well. It's just is a bit more hit and miss when you get that route. But
Yeah.
you got anything else more on Jonah's Awful?
No, I don't think so.
No. Okay. Next was Lock Henry, which this is like Dylan talked about. It's like kind of about true crimes. It's a young couple. They go to God, where is it? Is it Ireland, Scotland? Where is it?
Oh man, I think it was
Is it Scotland? Loch Ness Monster, right? Lock Henry.
Well, aren't they?
Right?
They're still in like. Maybe they're not even in Scotland. Maybe they're just in England still, but it's like close to Scotland, perhaps. Like maybe on the close to the border or something. I don't know.
They're somewhere not in America, and it's a couple. They're just, you know, one of them's I guess they're both filmmakers and stuff, but they're gonna make a documentary about this egg guy. It's about eggs. I've actually already forgotten what the egg thing was because it's the first. That was the first night I watched that like last week. But anyways, it turns into they go to a bar. They meet his, you know, kind of probably best friend when he was living there, and then you know through conversations, the girlfriend learns about this killer. I can't remember the killer. What was that? The Lock Henry or something like that? What was?
Well,
the
Lock
name of
Henry's the
killer?
town that.
Okay, Lock Henry's a count.
That takes
what
place.
was the name of the killer that they like? They gave him some like
Ernie or something. Irna,
yeah,
I think?
something. But
Yeah.
they learn about their local like butcher, right? The guy that got caught killing all these people. So they get the idea of, hey, we're gonna make this documentary. At first, there's a little push and pull because it's like, it's a little close to home. This guy shot his dad, which led to the dad, whose dad I should mention was a cop, led him to go in the hospital because an infection died. So it's kind of, you know, will hurt the town, pulled wounds, but of course they decide to do it. And then there's a whole array of things that happen. But what did you think about this one?
Yeah, I once again
You know Dar? Hang on, I got Emily on the side. Tell me, what was his name? Ian O'Dare was the killer's
Ian
name.
O'Dare.
It's in Scotland. There you go.
There you go. Thank you.
There you go.
Yeah, we need to get her back on the podcast to help us
Yeah.
out with some of these names and stuff.
Yeah.
What was I going to say? Yeah, once again, I had a fun enough time with the episode. I really liked having the actress from Bodies. I don't know what her actual name is, but to see her in something else was very fun.
Yeah, she's in
'Cause
something else too.
She was great in that movie, and it was really
Yeah.
fun to have her here. And she's great. Like I just want to see
Oh,
her
yeah.
much more stuff. What was it?
I think she's in a Star Wars show coming up too. She's playing a Jedi, I think.
Oh,
So
I'm excited
yeah.
for you to enjoy that.
yeah,
and
tell
I
you
will-
about it. Yeah, yeah. No, she's really good so far.
Uh-huh.
She's somebody that's on the line that I think she's
Yes.
not. Yeah, she's just
Good.
famous enough where I'm like, okay, good barometer. So
Yeah, I think maybe the issue I have with this episode is just by the end of it, I just don't know what the moral was. You know, I don't know what the point was. Was it like, I guess for the main character, it's like, okay, he went digging on this crime, and because of that, it ruined his whole life. His mom found out this
Don't
bad
pull
information from his
wounds.
parents. His mom killed himself. Now he's alone. He lost his girlfriend just kind of randomly. Like she just died, sort of unrelated to like really anything specific that he did. So I like, what is the moral there that you like shouldn't find the truth about this crime? Like I don't get it. I feel like I'm missing the point, I guess.
I think what they're trying to portray is when they're doing the documentary, and I think the scene I'll use as Exhibit A is when they're driving back in the van and they're like, oh, like they're singing, they're making up all these things like he'll come and cut you up and da da da. I think it's to show that look what happens when when you're making a story about someone else, but the story is about you. So I think it's kind of putting in perspective of like, hey, well, you're watching all these true crime docs. Imagine if this was you, which I've always had this before, right? Where I come in a very tough spot. It's not a true crime doc, but like the show Dahmer, which, you know, I really liked with, Evan Peters. But then you had many of the family members come and say like, hey, we really don't appreciate like we've lived through this so many times. Like the fact that this shows over billboards and winning awards
Does not
So-
need to be told. That story's been told.
And I
enough.
think that's what they're, even though the story hasn't been told, I think they're trying to get that point across of, imagine if you were the story now. So that's a point of, he tells a story, he makes a documentary, he wins the award, and there's all this applause. He's a big deal. There's, young actresses almost kind of flirting with him a little way, but now he's a home alone and has nobody. So I think that's what they're trying to show, that remember when you're enjoying these true crime docs, they're not just TV shows, which I think we can all, that happens to all the time, right? You'll see a preview, oh, this is really interesting, I can't wait to check that out. But really, if you think about it, it's a terrible situation. So I think that's what they're trying to get across.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. And I guess from that perspective, in terms of it being, it's not like a parody of a murder doc because it's from a different perspective, right? Like obviously there is elements where they're showing sections of what the documentary could look like, but it's more like from the first person perspective. And I guess just the tension of those scenes didn't really work for me as much, where they go into the house and they look around, they go down to the basement, but like nothing ever really surprising or scary happens there. That's what you're talking about, of like trying to be a bit horror but not actually being scary. And I don't think there was ever really a moment in the episode when I was like really on edge in that way, that it was maybe trying to.
One for me.
What was that?
I knew it was coming, because I'll get into my complaints in a second. I think they made this episode, in the first 5 minutes they tell you everything you need to know, and you know how it's going to go down. But I do think when they introduce the mistress, and she comes out in her outfit and has the mask and she has the saw and she was like singing, I found that very unsettling for a second. I was like, that gave me, so I wasn't scared.
They do a good job of making it look like, they probably
Yes.
recorded it on a VHS, whatever kind of thing, and then like actually recorded that. So
it was unsettling, and I knew it was happening, but it was unsettling when she came out, because I love that the switch of every time you've seen her so far, she's just so muted with her emotions, and here she's like a drunk college kid, just like going off, and that was about it. I think that was just more almost good on. You're right with the visuals, making sure it looked like VHS, but also the actress of doing a good job portraying that flip of being so into it, because sometimes it's strange, but like you got to portray a kill it's into, and sometimes it come off a little goofy. But this felt like, oh man, this I shouldn't be watching. It felt like a snuff film, so I think they did a good job there. But
and I feel like they're trying to have a bit of the murder mystery element to it, even a little Glass Onion from the same streaming service, where you like when you get the reveals, then you go back and you hear lines from the mom again of her being like, "Oh, if that footage got out," I forget what the line was exactly, but it just felt like it was hamming it up a bit too much. And then of course you have the classic like crass best friend who's just like has a really dirty mouth, and he's just making fun of everything. So yeah, I guess that's maybe where, if the writing between the characters had been a bit better, I could have been a bit more invested. Another thing too is, man, the main character, like the son, his accent was so strong that I found it really hard to understand a lot of things he was saying. Yeah. I needed the subs for sure, even though he's speaking English. It's like, man, it's crazy that this is the same language that I'm speaking right now.
I had to do that a little bit with Secret Invasion, because sometimes Ben Mendelsohn's accent's just so thick. I'm like, what did he say? And I was like, oh, he said Avengers. Okay. Yeah, I think my issue with it was it's such a tough thing to do with stories, right? Like, how much do you want to put in that alludes to what the reveal is, and then how much is too much? Because the second I met the mom, I went, okay, something's off with her. She just acts more weird than usual other people. It just felt like way too quiet. So I already knew she's into this. Okay. And they introduced these videotapes. So I'm like, hey, clearly something. I just wish the videotapes where they were talking with their mom and they were just kind of around. But at the same time, you want to make it that it makes sense, right? So when they pull these videotapes, oh, it's already been introduced. But this whole, oh yeah, my dad loved the show. He recorded every season, and my mom liked his bum. And then the mom like creepily interrupts him, like, I do like his bum. And like, oh, dinner's ready. So it's like, okay, something's with these tapes, because they already said they're going to use this thing. And then I can't remember when it happens. It's either before they meet the mom or after, and him and the girlfriend are going for a walk and just stroll, and they're talking stuff like that. And they get to a bridge. She's like, what this? And what this? What is this? And the male lead gives this whole shebang. I'm like, oh yeah, it's a deep river, and there's been lots of accidents there, and there's lots of people go missing there. So it's just like, I know the mom's into something. So when the mistress thing happened, I knew that was the mom. I already knew she was involved with this. Like, I knew it was the mom. Knew the tapes probably had the murders on there. And then I knew this woman was going to die in the river, because it was just like, oh, this peculiar, like the river one I wish you could have taken out and stuff. And even like you said, it was just very, just kind of like, I don't know. She was. I get the idea of she wanted to get further away from the mom, but the mom had no clue where she was. Literally no clue. So she was. I didn't think she had to go as far. So I just felt, and also too, I've never been in this position. I hopefully never will, where I have dinner with somebody I know that they're a serial killer and I have to play
Mm-hmm.
cool. But I always hate in these movies, and I hate when characters get dumb. I just don't buy for any second. You just want to be like, I'm just not feeling good. I'm going to go to bed. The whole idea of going down, having dinner, and everything of just like she's talking to herself in the bathroom. That's like feet away. I
Mm-hmm.
hate when they have to make it that our killer has to find out. She has no way to find out other than our main character is going to act very, very suspicious, and even then doesn't even choose to go upstairs and close her laptop. Like it's all this stuff. So I think that's the thing where it got very predictable, which that doesn't always hurt a story because sometimes that makes the through lines good. But I think it was just too much for me where all these reveals were kind of non-reveals, and then I just felt at the end it just kind of got easy with that chase and some of the decisions there and everything, and
Mm-hmm.
even the guy's dad telling him like a little too late, just felt like, well, yeah, he tells him, but it doesn't really matter because everything gets revealed. I did like the kind of the ending point of the mom actually killing herself and giving the tapes up, because I thought that's what got me at first. I thought she was going to destroy them because the girl was gone and she's getting all these tapes. I'm like, oh, she's going to get rid of them. But I kind of liked that the mom just kind of just admitted it and gave it up and said for your film and stuff like that. So I thought that was kind of a good, once she was caught,
Mm-hmm.
it was all game over, and I'm
I
gonna at least try to benefit my son some way by trying to give him something for this film.
I thought like she was maybe a bit too quick to be happy with him making the documentary and being on camera with an interview.
Yeah, I agree.
I like was she just that cocky at that point? I
She didn't
guess in
seem
her
like a
life
cocky
she's like she hasn't been
character.
caught in how many years. So yeah,
Or she just thought it would maybe further and maybe further push the narrative that guy was alone. And it was the same thing too. That was the other thing that got me on the bad path, or the path of them being bad, was the whole story about, oh, the cop went to his house and he got shot, and then he shot his parents and then himself. And I said to him like, oh, he killed them, and then he
Mm,
killed, like it was a cover up. So maybe that was it. She was just trying to further push the narrative, or
right.
she did get very mad when they talked about him being shot. So she just wanted to trash talk this guy.
Mm-hmm.
Good old Ian.
Well, I will say that to my point earlier when we were talking about Joan is awful. Like I did not catch on any of these twists. I did not
There
catch
you
on
go.
these
Okay.
things like you did. So the twist worked for me. I guess it was just the quality of the surrounding writing and the overall
Mhm.
arching story that didn't make it work for me. But I at least was surprised by the twist. So that's good.
That's good. Yeah. No, I just thought, and because I said this to Emily too. I know some people, it's different if you're like Nolan or Tarantino, where you got this whole Hollywood backing. But from my just experience this past year, you're making a film, and just any time, there's no way they're making this on VHS. In this day and age, you're not risking this footage
Mm.
on this old camera, like this whole project. Like we lose stuff on digital. You're gonna try this VHS. So I found that kind
Yeah,
of
there's whole
funny.
like
But
montages of them on Adobe Illustrator or whatever, like really just
Mhm.
not Illustrator, Adobe
Premiere.
yeah, Premiere, just
Yeah.
crushing it with like editing all this stuff. I'm like, and you're still using VHS. Like
Yeah.
interesting. I thought that
Yeah.
there's something not connecting here, but I guess they want that authentic feel perhaps.
But yeah, no, and like we said at the end, everyone's dead. They make, and I didn't really understand too the idea of, okay, so this mystery happened, or this murder has happened, right? And they kind of insinuate that's why this town no one's around. The bars are closed and stuff like that. And I guess that's it. I guess I already answered my question as the documentary comes out and that famous it. But I just thought like the murders still happen, if not they're even worse now. So why would people go there? But I answered my question. It got famous, and I guess that's another moral lesson of see how it was. If it's on
People
TV, then
suck,
people
right?
won't.
That's like a through
Yeah.
line of Black Mirror. People suck is a
Yeah.
thing they really like to hit over and over again.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't have much more to say on this. I feel bad for the main character. I don't think he's gonna have
Yeah.
a good rest of his life. But
That sucks for sure. Hopefully he made a lot of money, I guess, from
yeah, and just retire. Yeah.
even though he didn't end up making it, he's just involved, but hopefully he gets some
Yeah.
good royalties on that.
I barely got any. I guarantee he's getting like a $1.05 every stream.
That's pretty good.
Okay, just take out the buck and just put a 05.
If you get a
5
million
cents a
streams,
stream.
which you probably would, that's $1 million.
That's true. Then I'm gonna say 5 cents. He's getting 5 cents.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's the worst part. He didn't even work on it technically. He didn't direct or anything. He just was a part of it. And
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm good to move on to the next one here.
yeah. Next was Beyond the Sea. Yeah.
I did watch them out of order. I watched those
Okay.
first two, and then Yeah, but to be honest, he was the last one I watched. But if that's the third one, I believe you.
Was there any particular reason why you're jumping around?
The runtime, it was like
That's fair.
late, and we're like, let's just watch a shorter one. So we went to,
Mhm.
I think, Maisie Day next.
Yeah, because this is a longer one. This is one that has like a almost close to film runtime and stuff like that, longer than some
Mm-hmm.
other films. So we get this setup where it's these two astronauts, space people, whatever you want to call them. Who knows what they are? But it's Aaron Paul and Josh Harnett, not Hutcherson. Yeah, Josh Harnett.
That would have been a
Uh,
fun casting for this
that
role.
would
Oh
have
my
been
god.
fun. Yeah, yeah. Especially after it goes down. But the big setup is that they're working on some space mission. It's a very small docking station, but they've created this system where they both can clock in and clock out. So they kind of go do a shift up in space, and then when they clock out, they are back on Earth. But the twist is on Earth, they're using kind of cybernetic Terminator robot-like bodies that have been made for them to prove, so they can hang out with their wife and kids and still have a life and not be locked to space. Because this mission is like 6 years or something, right? So it would take a long
Mm-hmm.
time. So they have this big setup. So yeah, what do you feel about Beyond the Sea? Because I'm just getting the synopsis, but obviously lots goes down in this episode.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, is it the longest Black Mirror episode as well? Like I know there's been I think the USS Callister. I want to say that was a long episode,
Oh, what an episode!
but
God, USS Callister.
I feel like
Yeah.
this might be the longest one.
The
But
last one was pretty long. Or sorry, for God, what was the not
in this
the Red
season, you
Mirror
mean?
one? Yeah, what was the
Demon 79. That one is also
Yeah,
quite long.
it's
but
hour
this-
14. Yeah, so
Okay, maybe it's close then. But no, this is what I mentioned at the top where I felt like one episode was truly felt like a Black Mirror episode, and this was it once again because what I said where you get the best basic concept in the first 5-10 minutes, and it's more about how are they going to play interestingly on that idea rather than it being a plot twist or reveal later on that's shocking. I think maybe I really enjoyed the first half of the episode, but then it was strictly the writing quality and the believability of the characters that really was quite weak for me. Also, I wouldn't say completely predictable ending because it actually didn't work exactly how I thought it would. I knew David was going to be turned into a bad guy, but I didn't think it would work out in quite the way that it did. So maybe I was a bit surprised there, but yeah, I think it was really hard for me to just invest in the story because I just found the character of David a mixture of acting, a mixture of writing. I did not think it was a very well done character, and it was not believable whatsoever, which I think is where Black Mirror kind of shines because you're putting actors in these really, like, I don't know, the situations are believable enough that you can get invested in them, right? Like the tech, obviously it's future, but it's like 10 years away. It's like, oh, it's conceivable. And this is still that, but I did not find
this
that
is.
these
You think this is 10 years away?
maybe not 10 years away. Maybe like a lesser version. No,
Right,
not even. But what I'm getting at is
Like
that
a robot dog. You
it
give me a
lacked
robot
that
dog.
yeah, robot dog. It lacked the believability that a typical Black Mirror episode would have. So ultimately ended up being, I got to say, pretty disappointed with it. I think honestly, once that halfway point happened, it started to go down, and then like the last 10-15 was like a kind of nosedive for me, to be honest.
And to be clear, because I can't remember, is David the Josh Harnett character?
Yes.
Yeah.
I wrote them down so I'd remember, and then Cliff is the name of Aaron Paul's character.
Yeah, and that's funny because I
Lana,
talked about
Kate Mara. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I talked about that on Trash Totally because he's one of the rumor names for Two-Face right now, Josh Harnett, and
Okay.
I've always liked him, but I've never been in love, and because I feel like his acting in this is pretty much his whole career. I feel like there's times where he's very strong, and then times where he's just kind of wooden. And I feel like the good thing about him is I feel like he has, even though he has like a pretty boy look, he has like a different type of look, and I feel like he has a different cadence at times. So I think that's why he's had like a career. And he did talk to Nolan about being Batman, but he actually turned it down because he just didn't want to do franchise stuff. But he said it was a big mistake, which what you gonna do?
Naturally, yeah.
But you do Two-Face. But and Aaron Paul, he's always great. He's one of these guys that unfortunately he's just always gonna be remembered as Jesse, like from Breaking Bad. And I feel like that's kind of, luckily it's not typecast him because he's still getting roles, but I feel like he's always said that where he wants to try and break away from that. But it's tough because I still always see him as Jesse, right? It's just that was.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely true. I gotta say I was pretty impressed by him because I don't think I've seen him in anything else since Breaking Bad, and I thought he did something quite different here. So I was impressed by his performance.
I agree. Yeah, it is different. In a good way, it's much more muted. But I feel like I'm similar to maybe less less as much of his nosedive. I feel like my nosedive came in if there's 3 acts, like the third act. I feel like I was in for the first half because there's a lot of, the concept's really good. I like the idea. There's some bad stuff that goes down, which I don't like it happening, but I like for the story. It puts these characters in a very different perspective. I like the idea of how we're going to solve it. And then it's the third act for me where the finale to me has like a shock value thing. And I was fine with it because I thought it was going to go one way and it didn't. It went a worse way. But then they kind of set us up for, and we're going to get there, but they kind of set us up for me something very interesting. And then the episode ended. And I was like, oh, okay. So I feel like if there was an additional 5 to 7 minutes, even, I actually probably could have got over this hump, but it didn't. It just kind of went for that, like, man, this is really fucked up, right? And it's like, I guess, but yeah. So I guess actually let's take another ad break, and then we'll talk about this in the last 2 episodes. We'll be right back. And we're back. So yeah, with Beyond the Sea. So we meet these characters. You got David, who pretty much looks like he's having the perfect life. Him and his family go to the show. Kids are having a great time. Him and his wife are still intimate and stuff like that. And then
Got
you
some
got
fame and all that.
Exactly, yeah. They're like, oh, your skin feels real and stuff like that. And then you got, who's the other guy? So
Cliff.
they're at Cliff.
Mm-hmm.
What a name, Cliff. And then he's on the other side, Aaron Paul, where, he's with his family. They live far away, but it seems like him and his wife are very detached. Feels like him and his son don't have, like, the closest of relationship. Like, it's a father-son, but it feels like almost like that classic kind of tough love maybe sort of situation going on. And then the big setup for later on is we meet the missions, but the big setup is that these people, one of the Culkin brothers, break in and they break in, and it's a very religious sort of thing where, I'm probably just going to call him Harnett so I don't forget. Harnett's character is not living a natural life because he's living through a robot, and his family's, approved of this, so they decide to break his robot, but also in the process, they kill his wife and kills 2 children to make him watch. So very, definitely as far as like Black Mirror stuff, if you go down the line, probably the most brutal act that's happened, I feel, in all of the episodes. Like, there's gross stuff for everything, but that's like because I didn't know if they're going to fully go there. But yeah, they go there, and then also they get in this situation where he's very depressed, not what happened. And then Aaron Paul's character has the idea, well, what if, because it's months later, what if you take my link, they call, and you can go live a life and stuff like that. So what do you think about kind of the opening of this as far as the world and these characters, the dilemma, and then the idea of, well, we could swap links and I'm sure it'll be A-okay,
Yeah, no, I love the concept that as the episode was going on, because it's kind of long, I was really thinking a lot more about, like, would it make sense to put the actual human in space and not leave the human on Earth and send, like, this really powerful replica, but then I guess the replica could malfunction and then you're kind of screwed, whereas, like, a human... I mean, humans can still get
Human
fucked
could
up.
die. Human could have a heart attack,
there's
right?
all sorts of things that can happen.
Why can't you just not send like, I don't know, don't get mad at me, people, but like, I know time works differently in space, so but couldn't you just send another replica up there if it goes?
Yeah,
the whole idea
I
is
was
of a
unclear
replica,
if it was surrounding Earth or if it was like just sent off. I think that was maybe what it was. I don't think we ever actually got a shot of the space station like orbiting Earth. I think it was just like they were so far away, so I guess that's why you couldn't send another one up there easily. Presumably.
Yeah, I get. I'll accept it.
But no, I think the initial concept is great. It's very Black Mirror-y. I love it. I can forgive that thing in the plot because like whatever. That's what they chose to do for the episode because that's how the story makes sense. I'm cool with it. I don't really need much more. I was just thinking about the actual logistics of if this were to happen, is that the way you would do it? But no, I think the setup's really good. I like what you mentioned there of just the kind of contrast between their lives, like their lifestyle, but then also just the general happiness of themselves and their family. I got to take a quick detour to mention that, like, I did not realize there was another Culkin out there because when I saw that guy, I'm like, man, he looks a lot like Macaulay Culkin, but I don't think it can't be like
Kieran Culkin.
Yeah, exactly. Because me and Mutz have been watching Succession, so we're seeing Kieran Culkin right now. And I'm like, man, what are the odds that, like, just for whatever reason, the 2 shows we're watching right now have a Culkin that's not Macaulay? I didn't realize that.
Oh, wait, Kieran's in Succession. Okay, which one's in this one? What's his name?
I don't know. I forget what his name is, but it's a third one. And I was on IMDb, and there's a bunch of There's just 100 Culkins out there. All these
I know
kids,
this
and
one
a bunch of them
because
are acting.
Yeah, I know this one because he's in one of the Scream movies. So that's how I get affiliated with this Culkin brother. So he's playing another kind of sicko here and stuff, which I liked him in the role. He had a good kind of Charlie Manson vibe going on and stuff.
Exactly.
So.
Yeah. For how much they wanted those characters to be in here screen time wise. I think they did a good job of making this little posse, and they all have their little quirks to them and all that. So yeah, I think all the setup is really good. And yeah, when we're going into space, we're going down and stuff like that. Where it turns for me is that I just like I don't know how much what's the time we're talking about here. When his family dies, David's family gets killed, and he's stuck in space. Some days go by, maybe a week or two, and then Cliff and his wife start talking about the idea of letting him share the link, and which I'm kind of surprised that would work as well from the tech perspective. Like I don't know why that would be a
Yeah,
functionality built in there. It doesn't really make
because
sense.
when Kate Mara's like, oh, why don't they just create another link for him? And he's like, well, no, they had to be built off of us and everything like that. So that's where it's like, well,
Yeah,
that doesn't make much sense then. So that's where it's like, I feel you gotta jump through a few hoops for like it's very
pick a
specific this
side.
thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree with you. There's something there. I took it as like maybe it's been a month with the growth of his beard.
Hmm.
I don't know, because some people facial
Yeah.
hair grow a lot faster. But I took it's maybe been a month since his family's passed
But
or
yeah,
was
I think
murdered.
that amount of time to go from where he's at to, I mean, even just trying to start something going on with Lana over there, like that is such a breach of trust, and especially from like this guy who's been very generous to you to like literally give you his freaking body to use and experience this world and get out of this deep depression. Like
Hmm.
that felt like a stretch to me, and then obviously like I don't want to jump all the way ahead to the ending, but like man, like zero believability for that to me. Like
I
if
agree.
that was an enemy, someone that let's say there's multiple people on this ship rather than just two guys, and there's like two of them are bickering or they have this thing or he's made some mean comment, and like yes, he's like, oh yeah, Lana is like doesn't like you. She says you're like annoying, whatever. But like that to me, it would not push this guy over the edge to murder people
Yeah.
of like a close friend, like because I thought were you on the same wavelength where I thought the twist was going to be that he was going to, I mean they kind of hint at this too when he puts him outside the space station. I thought he was going to like take over his body and like just fake in his body, either run away or just pretend to live his life. I didn't think it was actually going to go down the road where he was actually going to kill Cliff's family. So
I
that was a bit of a
yeah.
surprise to me.
I thought it'd be too fast. I thought it was that he was gonna leave him out there, but then I thought like, okay, that kind of works. But I feel like there's lots to be desired there. And then I thought at most he was just gonna disguise himself long enough to like make love to her, and then that would be it. And
Mm.
I don't even think like a sexual assault, just kind of pose as Aaron Paul, like the real, the real Cliff, and get that way. So I didn't think it was gonna be a murder, and that to me is where it's like it was a shock value that took me out, and that's where like we'll still talk about some of the middle portion, but this is where it could have saved it for me. Is so yeah, they do the link. Aaron Paul gets back to his link and stuff, which again, like I didn't even buy him like giving the dog tag. It's like there's nothing that says you can't take this dog tag out with you while you go, because we didn't mention ever like Aaron Paul's the go out the spaceship guy and repair damage. So at the beginning of the like first 20 minutes we see okay, that's a legit thing that can happen. He calls him back, oh, near the end when they've had some issues, there's damage near the ship, blah blah blah. He goes up, of course there's nothing there, but they've shown that every time he goes out there he has to take his stuff off and put in. I don't think there'd be anything for him not being able to keep the dog take on. I know it might
Hmm.
float, but even then, put it in a pocket. Like it'd be different if, and that's where there's two ways. They were trying to make it that had a conflict so you could buy the ending, but then I wouldn't have bought, or I didn't buy that. If this guy is already sketchy, I'm not letting go that dog take at no point. Then that dog take staying with me at all point. Or you should have done the maybe he was secretly being sketchy, but then you can't have any conflict, right? Because Aaron Paul wouldn't find any of this stuff out. So I feel like it's a mixture, and both paths don't really work. But I think for me, the thing that could have saved it was so Harnett goes into Cliff's body. Yeah, he murders his wife, assuming their child and stuff like that. So it's just like circle of like, okay, your family got killed. Not in the same way, like maybe he was a dick, but I didn't buy him being a full murderer. But so
Hmm.
Aaron Paul gets back. Aaron Paul, maybe the best crying actor in the biz. He's being very emotional. He gets back and he sees Harnett. And he's sitting there at a table, and then Harnett is at one side. And there's a chair, and he takes the chair and he kicks it out, and he kind of just motions for him to sit in it. And then like, okay, this I'm very looking very forward to this conversation, because I'm like, okay, I know they might fight, one might die. That's you know, th- that's the natural course it's going to go. But I'm like, hey, what are they going to talk about here? And then it just cuts. And I'm like,
Hmm.
oh, I thought a conversation would have actually what could have. I could have maybe bought more into this, or could at least made me a bit more interested, whatever it may have been. And I just feel like that was them kind of showing their hand of, well, we don't have exact great well thought out motivations for him to actually do this, so we're gonna cut here. But I thought with a great conversation scene that actually could have sold me, but
Mm-hmm.
didn't happen. We just got a shot of them in space, and you just assume that they would just what they fight and one of them kills each other, which is like okay,
Yeah.
fine, you know, like I
It's a
don't
bit too like goofy, and I also found that too with like David just doing all these drawings, and not necessarily he's not like postering those ones on the wall, but he's just kind of leaving them out, and
Oh yeah,
like I
the
don't
new
know
drawings of the guy's wife. It felt very easy just to
and
get
then,
there.
and then
you know?
that reminded me too when Cliff's like he draws from memory. It's like, oh my god, like I
You're
don't know,
right.
he's unable to conceive that this guy's a very good artist. Clearly, that he wouldn't be able to just like imagine this thing. I understand why he'd be skeptical at that point, but the fact that he's like, oh, he draws from memory, that must mean that he saw you naked is like that's some pretty shit reasoning there too.
Yeah. And to me, I think the easier route was what I thought they were initially going for was just that Lana, like it seems like she definitely had feelings for the fake Cliff, like Harnett's Cliff, but eventually when push came to shove, she said, "Hey, this isn't right. You're not my husband. Like I don't want to speak to you anymore." To me, I thought the better route was her legitimately falling in love with the other guy, and
Mhm.
almost like I don't know if I like the ending, but I feel like there almost could have been a better ending of like you drive the real Cliff to that point where he's gonna murder his wife and kid because he's so upset with like how could you? You're my wife. Your guy let use my link like, and now you guys are on the side getting it on. You're more happy to be with him. Like I feel like there's a version with Cliff that it works better opposed to David just like getting turned away. And I was with you too. I didn't buy for a second Aaron Paul. And Aaron Paul gives a great speech acting wise, but he just gives a speech of like she thinks you're filth, she thinks you're a scum of the earth, and you're a shyster, a trickster. I was like, why? Like this guy's seemingly like you probably have to be pretty educated to have this job. And I didn't buy at any point that David was this dumb or just this naive. And even then, like you had pointed out too, I also just didn't buy that he was already just down to like move on from his wife. Like I didn't buy that like helping him through this trauma would be well another woman. Like I don't know. It just I feel like they presented a lot of different paths, and the path we ended on was the least interesting of them all. You know, and maybe someone wouldn't like that, like oh they would just fell in love. But I feel like that would have just been more interesting. And even then, it would have been too. I thought we were gonna get back to they fall in love. And then when they come back to Earth, what does this woman do? What does she do? And it's like her husband, and then this guy she like connected with. Even if they didn't get it on like physically, like what would you do if like you meet back and you'll have dinner to have the successful mission, but now you're seeing this person. But the thing is, you're seeing Harnett's face with the guy. You know, like you're now seeing him not in his real body. Like I think there was fun things to play with, and they just went it to men fight over woman, man kills fam. Like it just. I felt very like caveman-ish.
A little barbaric, yeah.
Yeah.
I felt too like I know Cliff is obviously not a great guy in general. They really I feel like trying to hit you over the head with that. But he openly admits that he's like hit his kid and stuff like that.
Yeah, why do I care about this character anymore too? When he said that, I'm like, all right.
I know, yeah, it's hard to like want to root for anyone at that point. Even Lana's like just the way she's acting. Everyone's sketchy. I feel just bad for the kid. Everyone else is just kind of a piece of shit. But like after David in his body hits his kid, like to me, even though he has hit his own kid, like that is like there is no way in hell you give that guy your body again. Because the thing is, yes, his body I guess is still up in space in that thing, but you can't just like pull him out of the simulation at any point, right? Like
I don't think so.
If
They
he
never
take,
show that
because you have to go back in the chair at the very least in order to like do because that's how the tech works, I presume. So the amount of trust that like okay, once he's already done something a bit sketchy, that there's no chance that he wouldn't just take the body and run, and then at most you could stop him from the simulation, but then you would never get your body back potentially. I don't know, like to me that was they shouldn't have done that. They should like I don't know if they were trying to build it up to he going from hitting the kid to potentially killing him, though that's not seen, but like I don't know, I feel like either way that's such a big jump that didn't really feel like a step that got me there, and it just felt like really unbelievable for the character of Cliff. And then, as we just mentioned, it also made him a character that I just absolutely hated, so I didn't really care if something bad happened to him. Now, obviously, I don't want his wife and kid to get
Of course,
murdered.
yeah.
But yeah.
Well, and that's where for me it was odd in two ways. Because one, I didn't get that feeling from David that he would just be like smacking kids, like or from David, and then they just showed like all it was is like the kid, it's bad, but like he put his hand on the painting he was working on, and it was a weird cut because. Like it cuts, and then the next time is a scene of Lana talking with Real Cliff, like, "Oh, he hit our son." It's like, "Oh, did he?" Like I was like, "Was she lying? Did he actually?" It's like, "No, he did just hit him." But then, even then, they had Cliff had his reaction was, "Oh, well, I do it all the time." Like he didn't seem too offended by it. So it was the issue of like, then why did they make him hit this kid? That wasn't a driving the more driving point why Real Cliff was mad is because he was drawing his wife naked. It wasn't that he hit his son. It was that like, oh yeah, they might be up to something. So. Just a lot of mixed messages kind of all the way around. And even then it's so funny. I didn't feel that, Lana and like the fake Cliff had like a undying connection. Like I didn't buy that either. It felt very forced and stuff. And that's why I said maybe something like this is better, could have been better in like a 2 hour. Maybe this is something that needed more time, even though I didn't
Or even if
enjoy
there's
it,
a time jump and it's been like a year of him using his
Yeah.
body once a week or
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah. So
Mhm.
I think I think it's a great example of lots of potential and great acting and stuff all around. And, I think it had lots of potential, but I think I thought it was going to be an all timer, but it didn't end up being that way. So
Definitely. Yeah.
yeah.
I'm ready to move on.
Which is the werewolf one? That
We have
was number
Maisie Day
4.
and Demon 79.
Maisie Day. Yeah. I don't know. These last 2 episodes to me were just like, hey, have you seen this movie? We're doing our version of it, and it's lesser than. This was just like, hey, have you seen Nightcrawler? Being a paparazzi person's bad, and this is about karma. Oh, and we're throwing a werewolf in there. This is where I thought this it's a horror show. I definitely don't know, but I feel like this could, if I were to rank bottom episodes, this is probably definitely my bottom 5. I think there was some fun stuff, but I just feel like I've just seen this story done so many times in different media of camera guy, paparazzi, gossiper, gets destroyed by a monster, and I just knew too, that's the way it was going. They keep, I know I'm jumping all over the place with this one, but like they show our star hit something the whole time. I know it's some sort of monster because they're not revealing it. And it's just this idea of, oh, she's locked. She's in this like really weird location and she's in a room alone and stuff like, again, it felt predictable to me, and this is where I said for me,
You predicted the werewolf twist?
not predicted that she was a werewolf, but predicted she was a monster of some sort.
Really?
Just because,
Okay.
yeah, because in horror anthologies, and this is where I've seen so many from Tales of the Crypt, like I said, Goosebumps, Afraid of the Dark, Masters of Horror, Fear Fest. Like there's so many times of this of just shitty people get destroyed by a monster. And I just, once she was getting sick and she was getting further away from people and she was like locked, I was like, oh, and I didn't know it was werewolf, but like she's gonna be a vampire, she's gonna be some sort of monster. So I literally thought this is where it's gonna go. And my biggest gripe with the episode is you have someone like Zazie Beetz, who is great. They give her nothing to do here. Not like this could have been any actress playing this character who's having a struggle of, oh, should I be a paparazzi person? Should I not? I ruin this person's life. And they don't even give her like big scenes for her to really struggle. It's just very much like, yeah, I just don't want to do it for the money. So I was very, very disappointed with this episode. Other than the wolf looked great. I think animation wise, it looked fantastic. There's some fun, like if you're into like some horror gore, sure. But I was massively disappointed with this episode. Go watch Nightcrawler.
Nightcrawler is fantastic.
Yeah.
After watching this episode, I was like, man, I want to rewatch Nightcrawler again. But no, Travis, for the first time tonight, 3 podcasts in, we are completely opposite on something for once. This was my favorite episode of the bunch. And, is it an all-time great Black Mirror episode? No, but was it just a really fun 40 minutes of TV for me? It was. I think Zazie Beetz, yes, not like her greatest performance or anything like that, but I liked the character that she was playing. I liked that she was someone a bit more low-key, and it wasn't, Joan is is intentionally supposed to be these actors playing heightened versions of themselves, being goofy, and I like that it was just Zazie Beetz kind of being just a low-key version of herself, like kind of downtrodden, getting harassed by her roommate, a little like depressed, not loving her job and all this stuff. And I thought that worked perfectly. And yeah, I guess for me, like the twist of, werewolf, monster, otherwise, I just didn't think that was like in Black Mirror. I didn't think that was possible in Black Mirror, in this world, I didn't think that werewolves could possibly exist. So that's where I like never would have believed that it was something like that. it's always like some tech related thing, right? So that's where I think that twist really worked for me. And me and Muzz were just like cackling when she was transforming in that apartment, just because we did not see that coming. We're like, what the fuck is this? And it was just hilarious because, yeah, I mean, to me, that setup of her just, having this really traumatic event where she killed some guy driving because she was high, and then just like being super depressed because of it, and like abusing drugs and not being in a good headspace and needing to be locked away. And it's like, okay, something kind of sketchy is going on here. Like, with this therapist guy is locking her in this room. Like, this is a bit intense. And so, yeah, that whole twist for me just super worked. And then like that last, whatever it is, 5, 6, 7 minutes of the werewolf just fucking up these people that, to your point, are intentionally very unlikable and like paparazzi, scum of the earth, like just getting wrecked over and over again.
Literally 75% in a werewolf, and they're still taking the photos of her and everything.
Oh yes, it was so bad but so good. It was so satisfying, man. Like it just paid off in the end for me. So yeah, I really can't dispute the points that you made. And I think if I had seen the twist coming, I'd probably feel lesser on it. But because it was such a shock and surprise for me, I think it really worked. And yeah, it was just, once again, such a fun 40 minutes of TV for me. And yeah, just something very different. Not very Black Mirror, but still fun.
Well, that's good, and I feel like because the Loch Henry episode, and then also because the screen for all Netflix was always the demon one, that's where I felt like this season we were getting more of like horror-esque sort of stuff. And also, again, and I think that's why probably not just because I've seen the story before, but just because I was set with the creator being like, hey, this show isn't just tech is bad, and I feel like he was setting up.
Yeah, I guess I hadn't seen any of that, and I don't think I saw a trailer.
So that. Yeah,
for the show.
That's where I'll fully admit that probably has some stuff back in my mind of reworking and going, okay, it's not going to be a tech thing here. And it's one of those that like I don't think it's made poorly or anything like that. I enjoy it to a base of okay, that's good because it's good. Same thing when I say it's bottom 5. That's just because like Black Mirror has like a lot of great stuff, and I feel like they're never making stuff that's bad. But yeah, I just never really got to that point, at least where you were like, as far as really enjoying and stuff like that. So, but I'm glad you did. Because I don't have too much more to say on it really. Because
I guess
it's a pretty basic episode, but
it's got that classic ending. Like, what do you think happened? Do you think she shot her or did she shoot herself?
Why would it matter who shoots who though? She's dying anyways, right?
I guess. I mean, it doesn't really matter in the sense that this is a one episode arc, and you're never going to see Zazie Beetz or not, whether or not if she survived or not, like you're going to see that character again. But it's intentionally like the Inception sort of ending, right? Where it's like, what truly happened there? They zoom out, you don't know, you hear the gunshot.
I guess for me, my more wondering about that is the same way you were wondering about the Loch Henry episode. What was the moral lesson of this episode? Because you have and I know it's like don't be shitty, but like. You have Zazie Beetz, whoever shoots, they shoot, and she's dead, and then she pulls up her camera and takes a photo. So I was like, our main character really didn't learn anything. Like, the whole journey, I thought the point was going to be to, like, hey, you should have learned your lesson the first time, that because she takes a photo of that guy cheating on his wife with a guy, right? And then he kills himself. So that was the lesson of, you're out. Someone comes to her and says, hey, you get 30 grand for a photograph. So, of course, it's going to get her back in. But then it's kind of like, well, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on you. Fool me once, shame on fool me. What is it? Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me once,
twice,
shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. And that's where I thought, okay, the werewolf. And I thought what was gonna happen, which usually happens a lot of horror stuff. I thought she was gonna get bit, and that was gonna be her comeuppance. It's like, well, yeah, you got this photo and you got this money, but now you're gonna be a werewolf person. But like, what her comeuppance is like, she's just gonna get that money now, right? Like she.
Yeah. I guess that's the pull of it, is that she didn't truly change through all of that. I guess you could look at it too as there's an element of, I don't think she really cares about the other people, but like her, presumably like one of her best friends, I don't think it's like, it wasn't her brother or something, but just like someone she was close with, was like just murdered right in front of her. And I guess maybe
shitty guy though.
What's that?
Though. He was a shitty person though. Because he had a chance to save that person under the fence. And he didn't. He was just trying to grab the camera. Remember, he's literally like in the guy's hand.
Yeah,
and pull
but
the camera.
I get what I'm getting at. Like in that moment, he, like, her good friend is killed, and maybe she doesn't want that to be for nothing. And he gave her the camera. He wanted her. Like, I thought he gave her the camera because he's got the the film in there, so she can use the pictures that he took in the apartment and whatnot to that point, so she could sell those. But obviously, she wants to take that one last picture. It's kind of like the guy in Nope, you know, who's always like living on the edge. He wants to get the most wild
Fuck
footage
the
of crazy
director.
creatures and stuff like that.
No.
But yeah, I think that's why it's compelling. That is a very classic Black Mirror thing too. For at the end of the day, for like the main character is just shitty, and like they didn't learn from their mistakes, and in this case potentially got them killed or not. And I thought it was, for an ambiguous ending, the cliffhanger, not even a cliffhanger, just an ambiguous ending, I thought it was well done here. And I don't know. I could not tell you. I'm truly 50-50 as to what I believe happened in that final moment. And I guess that's maybe the one good takeaway, is that's something I will potentially continue to think about from Black Mirror. Maybe I'll want to watch the episode again or something at some point. In the way that none of the episodes really have me thinking on it much longer, that one, you know, I'll never know the answer. Maybe I doubt the director or writer would come out and say, "Oh yeah, this is actually what happened." You know, they intentionally left it right on the edge there. So yeah.
And then finally, the one that I keep forgetting the name for, Demon 79, 89?
Yeah, 79. Yeah.
79. So, yeah, this was presented in a different way. It was all at first looked like it was gonna be a little grindhousey, had a little vibes that, but didn't really. And that said, presented by like a Red Mirror. It was a Red Mirror film. So I wonder in the future if they're gonna, you know, if there's Black Mirror again. I don't know if this was sprinkling seeds for maybe in the future of, hey, we're not gonna go, maybe this year not doing a series, but we're gonna do a movie for Netflix, and it's gonna be a Red Mirror movie. And it's like, I kind of like that idea, even though I didn't fully love this episode. This was the episode of if you haven't seen M. Night Shyamalan's Knock at the Cabin, well, now you have, but it's just the comedic version, you know. So pretty much what the setup is, we meet this character who seems like she's kind of reclusive, not so much in the house, just like her personality and emotionally, stuff like that. We get lots of visions of her wanting to hurt people, and like a, you know, genuine, like her bad,
Almost everyone's
annoying people.
openly racist to her as well, so that doesn't help.
Yeah, that's the setup. Like, it's not that she's just like Patrick Bateman inside. It's just like these are shitty people she's around, or she wants, like, this guy she meets like killed his wife, and it's like, well, and got away with it, right? She finds some sort of totem, you know, classic kind of Evil Dead, gets some blood on it. Now her soul's linked to this thing, and what she has to do is kill 3 souls, and we'll get more into what happens with these souls. And then she will avoid the apocalypse. She has some sort of devil guide with her, some, you know, someone from hell, some devil worshiper who starts as a devil and turns into some guy from a music show. So yeah, no, for myself, I even then, I didn't even know if this one had potential, because I feel like it's something I've seen before. And like I said, it's literally M. Night Shyamalan's Knock at the Cabin we got this year, where it's like, to avoid the apocalypse, we got to sacrifice some people. The humor didn't really hit for me here. I liked the actors involved, the 2 main ones, so it wouldn't be them. I just, especially with this, getting this whole treatment of a Red Mirror film and it being the last episode, for me, I was expecting a lot more. And like I said, it had a grindhouse feel, but I thought they were going to go for a much more almost retro 70s style type of horror, maybe filters a look. Yeah, this one again was definitely disappointing for me. I don't have, I have things to say, but not much to say as far as I'll remember or look back, and really I'll never feel like I really want to watch this episode. So
Yeah, I'm broken record here. I had a good time watching it, but I don't think I'm coming away with too many wild thoughts. I don't think I'd put it too high in my overall Black Mirror ranking. But I think for me it was really just the chemistry between those 2 leads was particularly great, and I really liked Anjana Vasan is the actress who plays Nita, like the main character here, and I thought she was great, and I want to see her more stuff. Like that was a very fun role that she got to play. She got to wear many different hats, as you could say. I really like the setting. So I totally missed that Red Mirror thing. So it's just like film studio Red Mirror.
yeah, it's like Red Mirror Presents. Yeah.
Okay, so that actually, because my biggest question with this is like, what the hell's going on with the ending? But I think you saying that actually helps it make sense for me, and I think I like it a bit more because of that. I don't know if we want to jump right to that.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, I mean, that was the biggest confusion for me, is that so obviously this takes place in, I presume, 1979. I'm guessing that's what the number is referencing there. And you know, there's all these different possible worlds that could happen. If she doesn't complete this task, then the world's going to get destroyed. But then there's different ways that she can go about that in terms of who she's going to kill. And one of the visions that is shown to her is like this politician. And did you catch this in there? And then like that quick, I don't even want to call it a sizzle reel, but it's just like here's a quick fast forwarded version of what this guy's life is going to look like, how the world is going to change because of this politician getting into power. And they showed that little like robot from the black and white episode from like probably season 4 or something. Remember that little death robot episode? It was like purely an action episode. I don't think either of you, me or you, were hot on the episode. But it was the black and white episode.
I remember it now.
I'm pretty sure that was the same robot. So I think
it's a post-apocalyptic world kind of too.
Yeah,
This robots
exactly.
after them. Yeah, okay.
So I think the idea being that the existence of this guy means the existence of that robot, and therefore probably the existence of the rest of the Black Mirror world, which is like in the same world but not necessarily always. It's kind of ambiguous. And so that was my biggest confusion is, okay, well, I guess she doesn't end up killing that guy, but she doesn't kill anyone because of like a technicality, and then the world gets destroyed. So does that mean that the rest of the Black Mirror world is destroyed? So my question,
this
my
was the
theories,
series finale.
yeah,
You know,
my theories were: does it mean this is all in her head, which is possible because that was my thought maybe 3/4 of the way through is like none of this is actually real. There was no demon. It was all in her head. And they're kind of play that up. That's what the cops think and stuff. Or it's like an alternate timeline. And because of the Red Mirror thing, now I think it's an alternate timeline. This is another way that the Black Mirror universe could have gone, in which, like, in a very Doctor Strange kind of way, like they snipped that one timeline, and this is where it ends, and these two go off to their eternal nothingness. But then there's another world where I guess she killed someone else other than that politician, and that's the Black Mirror universe that we exist in, that we've seen this show in. So I actually really like that, and if that's like the final episode of the show, then I actually kind of dig that ending now that I'm thinking it through more. But I totally would not have felt that way if it were it not for that Red Mirror thing that I didn't even notice when I was watching it.
Yeah, I actually wish it would be, because that'd be a fun way, and then like give it a week and then announce actually that was it, we're done and stuff. And maybe you could always return to it in a spin-off or here or there, or do Red films or Red Mirror films, stuff like that. But yeah, I like some of those theories, because you never know, they're more connected, but it's almost like the way that people try to do that with Pixar, right? They try and connect all these films, say, oh, the
Right.
cars, because of it. So Black Mirror kind of has that, because like some of these, they make sense, but at the same time they don't. Also, we talked about her already. They did that with that Letitia Wright episode, remember, where it was like the museum of all the
Yes.
things. So we've seen like similar veins of that. So I like that idea. I guess the only problem with me is just doesn't. If it's in her head, then that doesn't work for me. If it's kind of connected to the alternate universe, it makes it a little bit more fun. But
Because
just
if it's
none
all
of
in
the
her head,
ideas-
what is the ending, right? Like, it doesn't make any sense, really.
No,
Because then you have
it's
other
just-
characters reacting to the explosion.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it like, that's kind of disproven, I would say.
Yeah, so there's fun things, but I guess the problem is because the runtime's so long, none of those fun things, whatever they might be, like justified enough for me to make this like a really good episode or something like that. Like it's something that maybe if it was short or big, oh, that was cool to play with, maybe some Black Mirror multiverse stuff. But with it being so long, you just feel like it just kind of disappointing. It's just like, okay, apocalypse happens, that's fine. And even then, this kind of, I guess they're trying to be comedic, but this idea of, okay, she kills these people and the rules kind of keep changing of who she can kill and stuff like that felt kind of, I don't know, just a little cheap. And I get someone's gonna be like, well, that's what the devil would be like and stuff, right? But it just feel like, well, if you're gonna kill someone, wouldn't you want to know these very specific rules? And I feel like they give her the rules, but then all of a sudden change it on her. I don't know. So it's
But to me, I also see it as like, if it's this guy's first assignment, right? So he doesn't really know the best way to like share this information with her, and he's trying to guide her along, but he can't actually influence. Like, I was a bit unclear if he can actually influence things in the physical world. He does a couple times, right?
Yeah.
But he can't like, control her body and make her do other things.
Yeah, that's fair, and that's where it's just like, what are the exact rules of this? And it just kind of, to steal your quote, it feels like this is a very first draft one. I'm sure it's not, but that's where it feels like it's kind of the idea. They've written some of the script out, but hey, we're gonna come back and work this out. We're gonna work this out, or the idea of, well, they don't want you to kill this guy because he's kind of associated with us, and they're really gonna dislike that. Like, I almost thought that was the route I was gonna go. That okay, she will avoid the apocalypse, but she's gonna kill this guy that is, that Black Mirror likes, and what's the ramifications of that, or the hell likes, what's the ramifications of that. But I think we just kind of get a path that, again, I literally saw this year. It's just All right, apocalypse happens. Yeah, I don't know, and I didn't feel there was like a. And again, they were trying to. And Black Mirror has some comedy. I feel like they were trying to make this one more comedic, but I didn't. I wasn't like laughing too much. I wasn't like having
Mm-hmm.
some belly laughs here as things. And I get the push and pull, normal person just trying to kill people, but just people died pretty easily. Like they're just kind of like dummies and stuff like that. One rock to the head and it's over for them. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess for me those scenes were generally pretty fun. I really like the dynamic of
Mhm.
her being down by the water. She's freaking out at you know, the gravity of what's going on here. And she's kind of talking to herself from that guy's perspective and just kind of gets caught up in the moment, hits him over the brick. And then I just thought her acting was great. That whole like 5-10 minutes after that, her like dealing with the fact that she just killed someone
Mhm.
and like understanding what's going on here and how serious this is and like just how fucked up she is. Even when she has to act that the house is on fire, that the world's on fire, like that's probably not easy to act, but she did a good job there. And then
Mhm.
I just found it so fun when she went to the bar. She's doing these drinks. She's like, "Oh, is that normally what people do with ice and stuff like this?" And then just that whole sequence of following that guy out into the parking lot, all their dialogue, following him back to his house. I think it's maybe a bit cheesy that he just like gives up and he's like ready to die, I guess, because
Yeah.
it doesn't really seem to fit who that character is. But I just had so much fun watching her go on this journey of
Mhm.
like, man, this is a crazy ass 3 days for a human being. And she was able to do that and act in all these different ways. So yeah, I had a good time. I had a fun time with the journey and like all the way down to like the car chase and her just really being off the rails at this point and really gaining some confidence and wanting to have some semblance of what's not self control. What's the word I'm looking for? Some semblance of I don't know, ability
Self
to.
worth,
Yeah, I don't know what I'm trying to say exactly, but
something in that vein. Yeah.
yeah, rather than just following in the demon dude's footsteps and doing exactly what he's saying, she's able to take it on her own and like make some decisions and choose who she wants based on seeing the futures and stuff like that. So
Mhm.
yeah, it all worked for me.
Yeah, no, I'll agree there that I like her performance and stuff like that. And even the other guy's performance I liked. I think they could have made him a
Mm-hmm.
little more over the top. And like I said, that's what I was just kind of hoping. I thought they were going to make it a bit more stylized, where I felt the beginning and the credits open
That's fair.
stylized. And it takes place in the 70s, but to me, other than like, okay, they've changed to make it look like the 70s, it didn't feel like the 70s vibe and stuff like that. I it didn't feel like it was, oh, I'm teleported there. Just like, okay, this is a Today set that's dressed in 70s stuff. So.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough.
Mhm.
I think that was it for me over here.
All right. So I was gonna say, do you want to rank the
Mm-hmm.
episodes?
I'm ready to go. You want me to do mine first?
Yeah, go your first.
Number 5 for me is going to be Loch Henry. Followed by this
Okay.
might be a bit of a surprise. Number 4 is going to be Beyond the Sea. Uh, if it was just the first half and the second half were different episodes, I'd probably give the first half a lot higher. But it truly did nosedive for me. Number
Hmm.
3, I'd put Joan is awful because while it's not an all-time great or anything like that, I still had a good time. Demon 79 for all the reasons I just mentioned, I'd put number 2, and then Maisie Day, yeah, definitely was my favorite of the bunch. So feeling pretty good about that ordering
Hmm.
there.
All right. So I got. I go back and forth about. I think I'll put. I think I'll put the demon last because if you had to ask me which one I'd watch first, I'd pick Maisie Day because it's shorter, so that's why. And I like Zazie Beats and I like the werewolf aspect and stuff, so I would pick that. So I'd go Demon 60 or God, I keep
70.
screwed up 78, and then I'd go Maisie Day, and then I screwed up again, didn't
79,
I?
79.
79, jeez. And then I would go Joan is awful, and then I go Loch Henry, and I would put Beyond there. Beyond being the highest because I like the concept and the first two acts and stuff like that. But none of these episodes I would really put in the all timer category for me of Black
Mm-hmm.
Mirror. I don't know if even Beyond being top there because I guess the good thing is with Black Mirror, most seasons have usually only been 6 episodes and stuff. But even then, I could confidently say that I don't think any of these are for sure in the top 15, maybe even top 20. And there's not many episodes, but that just shows how great. Because I feel like there's even other episodes that in the past that when we would say, oh yeah, that's more a lower tier one or higher than these. Funny enough, you just maybe remember about the robot one. So there's some maybe not, but
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I think just doing this cast has made me want to go like watch. Like you brought up USS Callister, I was like, man, what a
I
damn
know.
good
I haven't rewatched
episode.
that. I don't know if I ever actually rewatched it. I really want to now.
Yeah, like so that like obviously San Junipero I usually watch like once a year. There's the other loved one stuff. So I think this the good thing is it kind of inspired me to I think the next little while when I'm doing something just put on an episode of Black
Yeah.
Mirror of ones that I loved and stuff because I want to get back there. And yeah, of course I'll take some more if it happens, but I would be good if the demon episode and that apocalypse ending was it for it. Because like I said, I think we've reached the peak, and some of those peaks are some of the best hours of TV. So you can't ask
Yeah.
for anything more, you know?
No, I mean, I really feel like this couple of these episodes, the more fantasy ones, we could say, like, why not make that like a new series and try this other thing that's
Yeah,
keep Black Mirror what it was and the tech focus. I don't care what the writer says. That's what the show's about, man.
I
And then
agree. Yeah.
and then dip more into the fantasy and stuff like that in this other series. I think I would have preferred that route of it, I suppose.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. We've done it. Is this the last time we talk about Black Mirror? Maybe we'll have to see. Who knows what happens in the next few years? But thank you very much for listening. Thank you to everyone listening to all the casts from that we put out, and everyone have a good weekend upcoming. And we promise you, next time you hear from us, will not be boring.
See ya.